Well, hi. Hey guys. Mira here along with us Squeeps, and we are back to podcasting.
Hello, listeners.
Hey. What? Oh god. You should not have been watching that last night.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
Anyway, guys, the podcast is back.
The podcast is back. Yes, welcome back to Life Sucks Podcast. So, we are here, and some of you may not know that we actually started as a podcast, not as a Twitch stream. Fun fact. You may not have noticed on most of our screens and templates up on the Twitch stream that it actually says life sucks ... podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. That's actually true. We do in fact have our podcast up and on most streaming podcast platforms. If you ever want to go back and listen to the chaos that is our previous podcasts. So,
Right, go listen to our old shenanigans and bullshit. Everything's gonna be a little different now.
it is. We're trying to actually stick to a format, actually have some, normal human conversations.
Normalcy, we'll just sum it up to that, you know?
We're trying to have some structured conversation. Actually address topics. We started out with mental health. We're gonna try and reboot with mental health. Squeeps put together really good talking points. He said he took more notes on this than he did high school, so.
That is correct. Apparently, when I care about a topic, I'm willing to take the notes. Maybe you should take notes, school.
Yes, our school system, it's wonderful.
I was like, hey, you know what would be great about being an adult? American government, geography, because I gotta know where I am. Mathematics, so I can count how many boxes of cereal I have. Yeah, you know, that's what school's for.
You say that, but I literally use math every weekend when I do tips and tip outs and stuff.
I mean, I count at till too, but come on.
Also, geography is important because I can't count how many times people have told me, "Oh, you're from New Mexico? What's it like becoming a citizen?" So,
See, my favorite South American country is probably the Philippines.
yes, my point exactly. Anyways, so our topic for tonight is something.
Depression.
Yes, depression, something near and dear to both mine and Squeep's hearts because, we just live it a little bit. Just a little bit.
It is a reality.
It's a fundamental fact of our lives. It's fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's okay.
It's just that meme with everything on fire. We're just sitting there sipping our tea. This is fine.
I think I'm more impressed that you knew about a meme.
Shut up. It's an old enough meme that I would know it.
Just like that, I'm a little less depressed. Thanks, life sucks.
This is true. This is true. So, some of the things we want to address tonight are, how can depression influence self-esteem? Why should it be taken seriously? Things that influence it, make it worse, things like that, and how it can affect the people around us. So, want to go ahead and just...
Can't forget depression special guest, PTSD and anxiety.
Oh yes, comorbidity. We'll talk a little bit about comorbidity, which is, yeah, I'll explain that later. So yeah, Squeeps, you wanna take us into the first topic?
Well, you already kind of touched on it, but I thought maybe we could start off where it all kind of stems from, you know? How can depression influence teen self esteem? I think we've all been there. I think the most confusing stage of your life will always be your teenage years because you're trying to battle hormones at the same time you don't really know for sure whether or not you're dealing with things like depression and anxiety. You know, those are all still pretty new words in your life. Um, you know,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
One of the statistics that we deal with, um, I work with youth weekly, is that uh, almost 90% of teenagers will battle suicidal tendencies. And it's not a consistent battle, but they will battle that thought at least at one point in their lives. And that is a horrific statistic. For me, as someone who works with youth, um, obviously, as somebody who was a teenager once, who has dealt with, you know, the counseling world, having been a mental health counselor, um, you look at the effects of depression and you see that and you hear that statistic and you go, well, God, you know, what are we supposed to do for all these kids? And you look at depression and anxiety, and the statistics just keep coming out and going up and up and up. And with COVID especially, people are saying, well, students in isolation are having a harder time. Depression and anxiety is on the rise. And, well, it's kind of like, duh. We locked them all in houses and put them on school on computers and kept them all away from all their friends and told them, you know, this is your life now. High school seniors didn't get to walk their graduation, and um, elementary kids got stuck trying to learn on a screen. And so we battle with these facts, and as I work with middle school and high schoolers, we have to work with them to help them understand that these thoughts, these feelings, not only is it completely normal and everybody is dealing with it and feeling it, but it doesn't have to control your life.
Absolutely. And honestly, before we get too into the topic, I think it'd be a little important for us to sort of define what depression is. I mean, obviously, it's a super common thing, but at the same time, it still helps to explain ahead of time because, you know, these days you have memes, you have satires, you have all kinds of things all over the globe where, you know, everybody just thinks they're depressed now, but sometimes it's not the case. Yes, it's more common now, but you definitely know the difference between having it and not having it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, I mean, like, getting into depression, it can be just feeling down most of the day on a daily basis, feeling tired and lethargic. Uh, it could be an inability to sleep, or you're sleeping too much just to kind of avoid everything.
Mm-hmm.
Fluctuating weight, lack of concentration, which is usually summed up by ADHD, and they get confused all the time. Um,
Get dinner yet?
inability to make
Did you
decisions.
guys not get dinner yet?
um, Lack of energy, less active, movements feel slowed down. You know, it's like the world around you is in slow motion, and it feels like you're in this never changing box of emptiness and darkness that is depression to a T, and it's not something that just goes away. Um, So I guess touching on the influence in teens in general, I guess the best way to state it, at least when I was back in middle and high school, they were your goth kids, your emo kids. Like, first off, this isn't me putting a label on a specific group that all has depression. I'm saying those were the groups that you commonly found it in, not necessarily everyone, because I knew plenty of athletes that had depression. Actually, a lot of athletes, because as an athlete in school, what's your goal? To move on, to make a career out of it, and all it takes is one injury, myself included. I've been there. It takes one injury to take that entire future away from you, and now you feel lost. Creativity, say you're a very artistic person, but all of a sudden you have no influence, you have no inspiration, you have nothing, whether it's writing music, whether it's painting, whether it's, I don't know, anything artistic. You just lose that urge. You just would rather go lay in your bed. You know what I mean?
Yep. I think with teens specifically, a lot of times it becomes this cycle. People will say, well, you have nothing to be depressed about. You don't have any worries. All you have to do is go to school. That's your only thing. You don't have a job. You don't have bills. You don't have any of this stuff that you have to worry about. So you don't have any reason to be depressed. And it's kind of an old school, world of thought. But I know there are a lot of people that still think that way, speak that way. And then it becomes this cycle of, well, I don't have any right to feel this way, but I still feel this way, and I can't make myself stop feeling this way. And then that becomes this cycle of, well, I'm not worthy, I'm not worth anything, because I can't make myself be okay. And then you get into this, I'm not worth anything, nobody cares about me, nobody cares about how I feel, because everybody thinks I should just be better. People think I should just be better. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not sick. I'm just upset for no reason. Or heaven forbid, people do get physically ill from depression. They can't eat. They lose weight. And then there's nothing physically wrong with them. It's the depression. And then you have other people telling them, well, you're a hypochondriac. There's nothing actually wrong with you. You're just crazy. There's no reason for you to be sick right now. And that
dismissal.
Right. And that becomes a cycle as well of, well, they're right. There's nothing wrong with me, but I'm still sick and I don't feel good. But I can't keep telling them I don't feel good because they don't want to hear it, but I don't feel good. And it becomes this constant cycle of feeling unworthy, feeling like people don't care, feeling like there's nowhere to go, and just wanting to avoid the entire world and wanting to just disappear. And when that starts out as a teen, it just, steamrolls into your adult life. And that's the kind of thing that myself, as someone who works with teens, us as people who run a Twitch channel, a Twitch community, with young people in it, that we work to build their self-esteem, help them remember that they are worth something, that you're worth far more than just the space you take up. You're worth every feeling. You're worth every, your feelings are valid. You have the right to feel everything that you're feeling. Depression can be clinical, it can be seasonal, it can be, you could just be feeling extreme emotion, but what you feel is 100% valid, and there is a cause for your emotion, and you have every right to have that emotional reaction. And I feel like the invalidation of a lot of people's feelings leads to that cycle of low self-esteem, which causes further and further depression and further low self-esteem, and it just becomes that giant cycle.
Absolutely, and even more than that, even if it's something you don't want to talk about, you don't have to talk about it. I mean, I recommend seeing a professional about it.
Mm-hmm.
Even I was against that for the longest time until I finally, you know, got up and got myself to therapy. I didn't realize its worth.
Agreed.
But touching on our community, you know, even if you don't want to talk about it, even if you feel a certain way and you just don't want to be alone, we're also here for that. You know, just at some or mention somebody in the Discord, we'll be there. You know,
Not
we
always
wanna be
me.
that community, so you don't have to feel alone.
At Squeeps, don't at me. I don't check my
At,
phone.
you can at either of us. Even if she doesn't respond to you right away, you'll hear from her within the week.
Generally within the day. Generally within the day. Let's be fair. Let's be fair now.
But even if it's not one of us, there will be somebody there.
Absolutely. Our community has built that environment, and we are so proud of everybody who has taken ownership of our community. I want to give them all a shout out. I love them, and I love the environment that our followers have built. So, I think that pretty much says why we should take depression seriously. If you agree, Squeeps.
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
is there anything you want to add to that?
I think we got enough topics to cover what we need to cover if you need something.
Okay, sounds good.
But I would like to talk about, you know, teens spending more time on social media. Are they more likely to suffer from anxiety and depression? um, First off, when Mira and myself were kids, you know, we didn't have the world in the palm of our hand.
We did
You
not.
know,
We most certainly
you,
did not.
we had fucking with neighbors' yards and throwing rocks and shit, but that's about it. Like, it was not a digital world. Everybody was not connected. Everything was completely different than how it is now.
I had a
You
rotary
know,
phone.
I had a rotary phone as well. I mean, we're not as old as a rotary phone, but
We are
we know
not.
what it is.
Yes, yes. We had one of those phones with one line, and you had to guess who they were calling for.
And you know, just touching on the differences, you know, it's so much easier to just pick up your phone these days and all of a sudden you have these things like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr,
Hey,
you know, just
hey.
different forums like Reddit, like 4chan, you
I,
know, all these different places where it's not like you're in a group of people that are all the same. It's different people from all over the world, ranging from, you know, 5 years old to 100 years old now. You know, you don't know who you're talking to, but you have that access to talk to whoever you want with any kind of sharing you want. So I think that has a huge impact on the difference between when we grew up and the kids that are growing up now.
I agree.
Uh, I
100%.
think social media was probably the worst thing to ever come out that man has ever made. Um,
I
Personally, the most toxic environment in the world.
I don't know if I agree that it's toxic. I don't know if it's the worst thing to ever happen.
It
Um,
is because all of a sudden you have all these people that are, we call them keyboard warriors.
oh
You know,
wow,
all of a
yeah.
sudden they have all the confidence in the world and they're a whole different persona from who they actually are in person, you know?
Yeah, but
Um,
we used to call people like that. I wouldn't say they were all catfish, but like there was
well,
always
not
the
catfish. That's why I always call them keyboard warriors because they had that keyboard confidence.
yeah, but like there was always that thing like in the AIM era when there was always that thing of like you never know, it could be some sleazy old guy sitting behind a you
Oh,
know
well, yeah. Yeah, that stigma was always there.
Yeah.
And that stigma will never go away because now you can just be whoever the fuck you want.
So I don't know. I think it's been around as long as we've been able to communicate with people through any means. And you could say the same thing about people who wrote editorials in newspapers. Um,
Do you think somebody ever got catfish through snail mail in the 50s?
yes,
I don't think I've ever thought about that before, but I'm
I
sure it's
I
happened.
think 100%. I think it was probably easier to send a letter and get somebody to send you money.
Exactly, because you didn't even have to send selfies, because, all even photography was so ancient back then. You had to go and get your film developed, and
I,
like,
anyways, um, I think the social media certainly has its benefits. Um, there are people that you would otherwise have no way of staying in contact with, and in a way, our Discord is a form of social media, and we would never once consider it a negative in our lives. Um, and I know for a fact you would agree with that.
right.
So, I think, obviously, I think Facebook is toxic because I'm not on it, and I don't check any of my notifications on Facebook or Instagram, or I don't I don't know. I check my Snapchat.
On this day, exactly 1 year ago, my Facebook was deleted, and I will never turn back.
Yes. So like I don't check any of my social media. The only reason I have it is because I am a social media manager for a company, and I have to have it in order to do social media management. Um, but I think that the keeping up with the Joneses that used to only exist in person, in neighborhoods, has certainly become a more pervasive concept. Whereas it used to be like, well, I want to be just like the person that I work next to in the next cubicle over, or we have to have, the best lawn in the neighborhood or on the cul-de-sac, or we have to have the best car in the cul-de-sac, or, that whole my life has to be perfect for everybody to see. And that 50s idea of, 2.5 kids and a white picket fence, you know, it has become, well, my life is public for the whole world to see because of social media. It's not exactly a new concept of my life needs to be up to standards. And I think this goes back to the self-esteem idea of I need that affirmation. I need people to see me and appreciate me and tell me that I'm worthwhile.
Right, because the person with 1,000 likes gets annoyed, but the person with 0 likes gets annoyed, but for two completely different reasons.
Right. And it's the same concept of I I am not secure in my self, in my being, in my worth. I need to know that I matter more than just the space I take up. And
Validation.
I need the people online to see me. And if I have to show them something better than the person next to me in order for them to say, I'm good enough, I'm going to do it. And I think that very much ties into the aspect of depression of the self-worth isn't there, the depression comes, the depression tells you you're not good enough, and the self-worth sinks, and the self-worth says, I'm still not good enough, and the depression says, I'm still not good enough, and the cycle continues.
Right, and there's actually even been studies on social networks like Facebook. Okay, exactly Facebook. That they have these formulas set in their code where you'll post something, all of a sudden everybody gets it on their timeline, you're getting more comments, you're getting more likes,
Yep.
so on and so forth. It's a part of the algorithm. And then they're like, okay, well, let's tune that down a little bit. Let's make them feel a little underappreciated. So they'll post a little bit more and start seeking more validation, or wonder why nobody's liking it anymore. And they start going extra, extra, and then a short time later, okay, let's promote that post now, make them feel better. They are actually putting into an algorithm ways to manipulate your emotions to keep you on their social networks.
It's called, it's part of operant conditioning. It's called random interval reward, and it is the most addictive form of reward system, and it's actually the reward system that is technically used in slot machines, because you're rewarded at random intervals.
Exactly.
And that's why people get addicted to slot machines so quickly, because just the next pull could be the one. The next pull could be the one. And so the random interval reward system is the most effective method of operant conditioning, because it takes the least amount of effort to get someone addicted.
Yeah, hell, even games like, just mobile games like Candy Crush Saga uses that formula. I mean, RNG literally says if you do it X amount of times, there is a chance that one of those times it will succeed.
Right.
So, it's influenced in everything, and yeah, people are disgusting.
Yes. But, whatever sells, right? It's still a business.
That's right. Money is more important than mental health, right?
Yes. Well, and that's something that people don't always think about. If something is completely free, chances are you are the product.
Right. Just like, I won't try to stray too far from the topic here, but according to law, human law, nothing that is living and breathing can be taxed. And you're like, wait a minute, I pay taxes every year. Well, your government's not taxing you, they're taxing your social security number. Your social security number is like an LLC to your right of living. So, just to clarify that for the people who didn't know.
Right. And, I mean, I'm a firm believer in people are not for profit. Like, you don't profit off of people.
But they are.
Right. So I'm not a fan of things that do stuff like that purposefully exploit people's emotions, emotional state, mental health, for the sake of profit. It's part of what bothers me so much about the healthcare system. People's lives are not for profit. That's something that I say quite frequently. And I believe it in the case of social media, the algorithms that Facebook has written, and I believe it in the case of the hospital system, and I believe it in the case of our smartphones, and the way that they're designed to keep us on them, keep us buying them, and pretty much anything that is designed to keep us coming back to it for the sake of business.
Absolutely. Well, so we've touched on social media, but we also kind of touched on the fact that, we have those abilities right in the palm of our hands, so might as well kind of add the next topic into it as well, which is how do smartphones influence anxiety and depression. I specifically included anxiety because, it's like depression's ugly twin. Even though they're not the same, they tend to go one in the same, hand in hand, if you will. But I think it goes back into getting into that validation, or just a matter of people tending to let these devices in their hands control their everyday lives, or phones being designed to be able to handle those things. That's why you have a notebook, you have a calculator, you have your banking, social media, you have everything important to your life on your phone.
Well, I also think, and one thing we haven't quite touched on, is with depression, you form a lot of coping mechanisms. I would argue, when left to our own devices, a vast majority of them are unhealthy. I know personally I have developed a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms in my life. But I think that our cell phones are a large one that people turn to, because it's easier to sit on your phone and stare at a screen and scroll through nothing. I mean, watch YouTube videos for hours on end, scroll through a Facebook feed that you're not even paying attention to, scroll through an Instagram feed that you're not even really reading captions to, than to face what your depression is telling you is too overwhelming. And
Right, and it gets rid of that face-to-face interaction that was so important since the beginning of time too.
Yes,
Like,
and one of
people
the
are asking each other out and dumping each other through text message because it's easier.
well, relationships aside, social interaction, and you and I know sometimes virtual interaction is the only interaction we really get, but social interaction is probably one of the number one prescribed medications for depression. Find a support group. Find a system of support that is going to be there, is going to say, hey, where are you at right now? Not necessarily, what can I do to make you better, but where are you at right now? And if you're staring at a phone screen to avoid having to talk to people, then you're not going to find that. You're never going to get anywhere with finding these people. So, and I mean, definitely not one to talk. My group is virtual on Zoom every other Monday, and my best friends are on Discord. So, but I mean, you, my best friend, live half a country away, right? So.
Yes. It is most of the time the only interaction I have.
Right. Outside of work.
So,
yes.
right. I mean, obviously I have customers. Not exactly helpful, but, they're there. I have associates. Again, they kind of suck, but they're there. It's human interaction. I have my dad here. I see him like once a week for the Giants game.
Oh, there you go.
Other than that, I've got a computer and my cat Ricky.
Yes.
So, whereas, I don't know if seeking help was as hard for me as much as it was me being hard-headed about it. Considering I am hard-headed about everything, and I will always be the first to admit that because I know it.
Isn't that the truth?
It is absolutely the truth. There's no changing my mind about it. But yeah, seek help, seek people, find somebody like Mira was saying, ask you where you're at, ask you if you want to talk about it. If not, they'll respect that you don't feel like talking about it, but it is appreciative to know somebody will listen, even if you think you're annoying somebody with it. Ask Mira. I annoy the shit out of her all the time, but at least I know she's okay.
That's true. He does constantly message me asking, hey, are you okay?
And that's important. You gotta have somebody there for you. If you don't, find somebody who is. There is always somebody out there willing to listen, even if you've never met them in your life. You never know.
join our Discord. You'll find somebody
Join our
willing to
Discord.
listen. And, like, honestly, if you think that you have clinical depression, if you are having a hard time staying awake, cannot sleep, are eating too much or not able to eat at all, are not interested in the things that you used to be, cannot find things that you enjoy, feel down, like you just can't get through the day, you don't have to go to a therapist or a psychiatrist. You can just go to a regular doctor. If you have a regular doctor, you can just go. And they will say, yeah, okay, that's what that sounds like. You don't have to go to a specialist. You don't have to go to a shrink, like people call them. You can just go to a normal doctor. It is 100% okay, and it is 100% safe to seek help with just a normal doctor. And they'll tell you, okay, I can help you. And if they think that you need to seek further help, they'll tell you. And if you're not ready for that, it's not necessary. A normal doctor can give you an antidepressant, and that might be all that you need. Or maybe it's not what you need, and you just need to go see a counselor. That's not a big deal either. Sometimes just taking one small step works, and that's all it takes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of options available to you. I'm on the same boat as you, you know, start with therapy, or you don't even have to start with therapy. Start with somebody you trust. You know, if you feel like that's helping a little bit, but there's some things you don't want to say to that person, then seek a therapist, you know?
Mm-hmm.
From there, you know, you have psychologists. If you think you get to that point, there's psychiatrists. But there is 100% always someone there for you that will listen without judgment, without, you know, belittling you, without nullifying the way you feel. There are 100% people out there.
Absolutely.
You know, there are people out there that they're so against medication, myself being one of them. There are plenty of natural resources you can go to as well. You know, one of the biggest things for depression is actually exercising. As hard as that can be, especially when you're depressed, you know, it's one of those things. You can sit there, you can think about it, but until you actually get out there and do it, you won't notice a difference. But, you know, go for a mile walk, go for a 5-mile walk, ride a bike, something. You know, that physical activity causes
Endorphins.
yeah, it causes endorphins and different chemicals to react in your body that it starts acting normally, and you'll notice a lesser track of those depressing thoughts. It's not going to it's not going to cure it, no. But at the end of the day, you're going to feel a little bit better about yourself. You're going to feel a little more confident. You know, diet. You know, if you drink a lot of soda, you eat a lot of greasy food or ice cream, sweets, things like that, those are things that make you feel more sluggish. So even things like a healthier diet can help you get into, you know, being into a better mind state. It's just a matter of being able to finally put your foot down and say, hey, I'm gonna go do this today. Jumping on Halo is not more important than my mental health, so I'm gonna go take a walk. You know, watching a streamer for 5 hours, as much as we love you guys, it is going to be better for your mental health to go take a walk and then come enjoy us for an hour or so, and then, you know, just do things that make you happy, that make your body better, that make you feel better. that's what helps depression the most. It doesn't have to come down to a little pill. It doesn't have to come down to holistic medications like even marijuana. As pro marijuana as I am, I still recommend being a healthier person because that overall is going to be more effective than anything else you can get out there.
And honestly, just hearing that sometimes as a person with depression is going to be like, roll my eyes, because yeah, if I could get out there and do that, I would be the person who was doing that and I wouldn't be like this. And that's why having a support system is so important.
Yeah.
Because if you're sitting on our stream and you're saying, wow, I really should be going for a walk right now, we're going to tell you, get off the stream and go for a walk. Come back in 20 minutes. We'll
Your
still be
mental
here.
health is more important than our stream.
100%.
And we know it.
100%. We'll still be here. We stream for hours. Even when I try to get off for like an hour and I still don't, we'll still be here. And we're going to be those people who tell you, hey, go for a walk. It's more important. That's
Or
why
hell,
you need, yeah.
if you're tuned into twitch.tv and you're on our station, throw some earbuds in and go for a walk,
There you go. Hear us
Then you
be
got us on the go.
nonsensical. And it's the same thing. You just need those people in your life, because sometimes, yes, depression sucks. And it will keep you in your room, and it will keep you in your bed, and it will trap you there, and it will trap you in your own head, and it will make the thoughts go round and round and round. And sometimes you just need that person to say, hey, come on, let's go. And that's why it's so important to just talk to one person, or have that one person in your life who knows to say what's going on, knows to say, are you okay? Because that's what's going to get you out of bed, and that's what's going to get you, out of the tub of ice cream saying, maybe we should try something else other than ice cream,
Freeze a banana, that shit's good as hell.
Like this morning I had banana chips with Cody instead of some kind of junk food. Like, it's little things like that. You just need someone in your life, and that's why finding that support system is so important, so important. And it's daunting and it's scary, but that's why we say, find it virtually if you need to find it virtually. If you need to join our Discord, join our Discord, because we'll be there. And there are plenty of other places that'll be there too. As dangerous as falling into the cell phone is, there's even apps to find a therapist now who will chat with you if going somewhere is too daunting,
There is always some kind of system available. It is always there. You gotta look for it.
Absolutely.
Even when you don't want to make that effort, just make that little bit of effort. Pick up your phone, Google it.
There
Find your
is
therapist.
there is
It'll be
help.
worth it.
There is help if you look for it. Promise it's out there. And it doesn't always cost money. I know that's a thing a lot of people say, well, I would go to counseling if I could afford it. I swear there are places that will do it for free. I've worked for them. There are places that will do it for free. So you just have to try. You just have to talk to someone. All it takes is one conversation usually to get the ball moving.
Absolutely. All it takes is just put that little bit of effort in there. It'll change your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it doesn't cure it. There's no cure for depression. I hate to say it. And I know from my work in psychology and counseling that when antidepressants came out, everybody wished it was going to be a miracle drug. it was going to work wonders in mental health. And then there started being side effects, lack of libido, mood swings, works.
Say Xanax probably being one of the worst of them. I know it's primarily an anxiety, but it literally turns you into a zombie.
And one of the most dangerous things is some antidepressants are very, very deadly for bipolar individuals.
Lexapro.
Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing.
I did not
Can you
say
say
your
that
name.
again?
It sounded like you said Alexa, not gonna lie.
Alexa, stop. That's embarrassing. I just got trolled. Damn robot.
For me it was mirtazapine. I don't know the name brand. That sent me into a suicidal spiral because I'm bipolar.
Citalopram did it for me.
Yeah. It's those are the mental health field wished they were going to be a miracle drug, and they 100% were not. The number one impact is weight gain. The number two impact is drop in libido. People complain about lack of sex drive when they're on antidepressants. Doesn't bother me because I'm ace, but bothers other people. And the fact of the matter is people with depression end up staying on their medication. And a lot of people... Yeah.
Sorry, just touching on that, it actually brings me back to a lyric that stood out to me, and I didn't know why. This was in a Green Day song. I'm not the biggest Green Day fan, but back when I did listen to them in the 90s, there was a song called Basket Case, and one of the lyrics, or a line of lyrics from that song was literally, my doctor said it's lack of sex that's bringing me down, I thought dude wasn't getting laid enough. No, it had to do with his drop in libido because of antidepressants. So
yeah, and a lot of people say, well, I don't want to go on these pills because I'm never going to come off of them. And
I just cited Green Day as the source.
And that's completely fair, but and I dealt with that when I was counseling. People would come in and they would be like, I don't want to go on this because I'm afraid I'll never come off. And I was doing addiction treatment, so people would come in and they wouldn't want to go on the treatment, and it was for opiate addiction. And they would say, well, I don't want to do this because I'm afraid I'll never come off. And my response would be, addiction is as much a disease as diabetes. And you take your medication for diabetes. So why wouldn't you take your medication for addiction? And depression is the same. We take our medication for our physical ailments. You wouldn't tell a cancer patient not to do their chemo. You wouldn't tell a diabetic patient not to take their insulin. And I don't see why we tried to tell mental health patients not to take their medication. I am absolutely batshit psycho without my medication. I am a raging bitch, mood swings, and plots to take over the world.
That's with the medication.
No, that's when I'm manic. That's when I'm manic. I do plot to take over the world, even on my medication. But I'm evil and plotting to take over the world without my medication. And it's... I don't know a single person in my life who would argue that I don't need my medication. Not one. After having experienced me without it. So...
That'll have to be a discussion for another time.
Mm-hmm.
Or for another podcast, but I think there's a lot more natural resources out there that do a lot more without the side effects that end up leading to more medications, but again, another time.
Mm-hmm. Well,
To get that 2 cents in there.
yes.
I think you should expend all of your resources before accepting medication.
And that's fair. And
Yeah, I'm not saying medication is bad. I'm saying I think you should, not you specifically, I think anybody who listens to this should do whatever they can first before accepting the medication. But if it does come to medication, then yeah, absolutely.
yeah. I just don't want people to not accept medical help because they don't want to do it. Because they're afraid of being on medicine for the rest of their life. Because if it were any kind of physical illness, people would just accept that they need medical treatment.
And a lot of the people who do become addicted had no idea they had an addictive personality to begin with. And that's the scary part.
Right.
Like, nobody drinks a beer and expects to become an alcoholic. Nobody takes hydrocodone after having a tooth pulled and expects to get addicted to it.
Right.
It just kind of happens. You just don't realize it because you've never been there before.
Right. And those are the people that end up needing treatment. So, I know you wanted to talk about another method of treatment. Do you want to go into that? Or another method of medicating?
Well, for me personally, I have become a lot more active recently. I have been actually making time in my day to go to the gym. That's why I've been streaming a little bit later and, you know, doing what I need to do to make sure my mental health is in check, especially this month. Every year, December, worst month of the year, not just for me, but most people around the world. It is the most depressing month of the year. Mostly for commercial reasons, but for me, aside from doing what I need to do to be physically active, I prefer to smoke marijuana before I go to sleep. It kind of turns off all the bad thoughts. It actually turns my brain off so I can get the sleep I need. Now, there is a stigma to smoking marijuana for very good reason. You know, you can go on YouTube or Twitter or TikTok and see these stupid videos of these guys just abusing the hell out of what it's for. You know, with these like 6-foot bongs that they have to take retarded large hits off of. And, you know, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with just being
Stupid?
a stoner. Yeah, don't be an idiot. It's like alcohol. Enjoy it. Don't abuse it. Because even though it's more rare for something like marijuana, it can still be addictive. So, not necessarily in the way that your oxycodones, your crystal methamphetamines, things like that would be addictive. More of like addictive in a coping way, like as a coping mechanism.
Psychologically addictive, not
Right.
physiologically addictive.
Right, which I've been in that boat before too. I was like, well, maybe it's just easier to make my brain go away, make my emotions go away all the time. And no, it makes things worse. And then once you do finally come back to reality, which, hate to break it to you, you're always going to, it just hits 10 times harder because you've been putting it off.
Mm-hmm.
So I've learned how to use it medically. I'd smoke a little bit and then go to bed. I don't even pack a full bowl anymore. I take 2 hits. That's all I need to just get that lift I need and go to sleep, you know? But it's becoming more and more available. There are places that can teach you about it. I don't recommend the internet as much because there's way too much false information out there. talk to somebody who's actually done their research about it and use it properly. You don't even have to smoke it. You can get edibles, you can get topical ointments, different. You could get CBD, which doesn't even have the tetrahydrocannabinol strand in it, THC. So you don't have those psychological effects that come with it. It's just healing elements.
CBD is what
It's
I use. It's a
right.
calming
It is,
effect.
yeah, and it is very misconstrued that marijuana is a weed on the planet. It's a plant. It's a super plant that can be used for all kinds of different things. And if people could learn how to use it properly, then you would have legalization nationwide because of how helpful it is. And there's it's not just mental health, it's also people with like cerebral palsy that they can't help the functions of their bodies, or Parkinson's, different illnesses that affect your muscles and bone growth and things like that, to where you're constantly twitching or injuring yourself. There's videos of people that take a hit of CBD, or they take a hit of just marijuana, and all of a sudden they're just sitting still.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's a super plant. It does work. Just use it maturely. Use it properly. Treat it like it's an actual medication. Don't abuse it.
Right.
And yes, it'll absolutely help you out.
Absolutely. Another method of that we were going to talk about, not so much in the way of treatment, but one of the therapy methods we were going to talk about was music therapy. I actually have a friend I have two friends now who are music therapists, certified. One is practicing, one is not. And music therapy is fantastic for depression. I find myself feeling better just singing, because it's what I do. I sing on Friday nights every week, because I can never get away with not. But it's better for my tips anyways. And just having a jam session in my car. So music therapy is even better. Integrating emotions into music, learning how to express what you're feeling, how to identify what you're actually feeling, because depression likes to dull that. Depression likes to just make everything feel empty. And so what a lot of music therapy does is pull a lot of that out of you with music, with listening to it, learning how to play it, and a lot of other things. And it's very, very effective. Sometimes on your own, you might just want to do this. You might just want to try playing different forms of music. Stuff that you would consider calm, stuff that you would consider high energy, stuff that you would consider angry. Identify an emotion and play them and see which ones resonate with you, and see if it helps you identify what you are feeling when you're caught in that state of, I don't think I'm feeling anything. And a lot of times that is one of the basic tenets of music therapy. There's a whole lot more that goes into it. And if you're interested in it, I'm sure you can find a music therapist wherever you are. You'd be surprised how many of them there actually are. A lot of music teachers are music therapists on the side, so it's pretty common. And it's one of the best ways to become self-aware through depression. And that's one of the really important things, because when someone asks you, are you okay? A lot of times your answer is just meh. I mean, I've been there. I've been there a lot. Where it's just like, yeah, I'm here. I don't really care about anything, but I'm here.
Hell, that even stems to one of my favorite lines. I'm having a time. Could be a good time, could be a bad time. Guess what? I'm having a time.
I am having a time. And it's 100% true. Depression loves to do that to people. It loves to just suck the life out of everything. Ha! Life sucks. But anyways,
Right?
music can be an amazing thing. If you play it, I cannot suggest it enough to pick up your instrument.
Music has the power to mend your entire day. Music is one of the most important things in the world because it is the only thing in the world that makes you use 100% of your brain.
Absolutely.
It can change your moods, it can change who you are, it can change how you feel about something. It's been proven in so many psychological evaluations. It's why it is the most important thing when you go and see a play, when you go and see a movie. The music is telling your brain how to react to what's going on the screen.
The composition. Oh yes, you do not even want to know how much time we used to spend in picking the pieces to accompany our productions. It is ridiculous.
Right, like a minor fall on a major lift, that tells you, hey, you're going down, but guess what? We're going right the fuck back up. Like, that is how music works.
Yes.
Like, looking at music can cause anxiety in so many different ways, too, because you have notes of silence. Like,
Yes.
when you're actually composing music, you're working with time signatures and things like that. You can have a whole rest, but you can also have 30-second rests. You can literally speed up your silence or slow it down. It is
Yep.
so crazy, and
Yep.
it will give you anxiety.
Yes, you can. Yes. Playing music, it can break your brain out of whatever state it is in. So I cannot advocate for it enough. But I mean, if you're not a musician, you're not a musician. I'm not going to tell you have to go and learn how to read music and play the piano right now to cure your depression. I would never.
What you need music for is to show you how to feel.
So, pick a song, listen to it. If you want to pick a depressed song that makes you feel sad, at least it helps you feel something. Because depression loves to take that away from you. It loves to pull everything away, make you feel hollow and empty and like you aren't worth anything. And it loves to keep you there and suck it all out of you and just make you want, it paralyzes you. And
Absolutely.
to get out of that is the most important thing. Going for a walk, working out, changing your diet, listening to music, reaching out to someone. Those are all fantastic ways of doing that.
Right, and there's so many artists out there that don't just touch on one emotion with their music either. It's actually like, I'll say this till I'm blue in the face. I want to get Mira to listen all the way through a Joji album because it is an entire journey, and it's why I love it so much.
You made me
Not
watch
just-
that thing.
Well, yeah, but you saw what I meant, though. Like, listening
Yeah.
to the music, like, you'll have happy, you'll have your sad, you'll have the kind of sad where you're like, you know what, I've felt that kind of love before, and I felt that kind of hurt before, and maybe I do have that person in my life, maybe I don't, but he took you on that journey with him, or you turn on something metalcore or hardcore, something, just super powerful like that. What are you gonna want to do? You're gonna want to go use energy. That's why people do mosh pits at rock concerts. That's why people listen to that music while they work out. You're not gonna You're not going to listen to country music while you're benching weights. You're not going to listen to jazz when you're trying to run a mile, you know?
It depends on the person.
Well, okay, most people aren't going to listen to jazz while they go run. Because jazz is supposed to be, although upbeat, it's supposed to be a more relaxing
I think
kind of genre.
I think my mom listens to a Pitbull mix when she's running.
Oh, I'm still not sure how hip hop makes me feel.
Pitbull isn't hip
Sometimes
hop.
it makes me.
That's reggaeton.
Well, you know what I mean. He's close enough to hip hop. He's a subgenre.
Whatever.
But yeah, like I don't know. I think hip hop's the only thing I don't listen to by choice, just because it doesn't really have an effect on the way I feel.
That would be
Maybe
country
it's
for
different
me.
for you. It's different for everybody. Country doesn't make me feel anything other than retarded.
Jesus Christ.
But there are absolutely those genres where people work on those pieces to make you feel the whole time you're listening. And music can change the way your day goes, you know? Go ahead, try to start your day with something slow, start the next day with something a little more upbeat, start the day after that with something hardcore, you know? Just see that effect it has on you and see how you can use that to better your mental health, because you can absolutely use music as therapy for that.
I can do a shameless plug. My husband and his band put out a hardcore album. If you guys want the link, I'll give it to you. If you need hardcore music. Just a fun plug.
Sure, Richard Corey, go look him up. Corey without an E.
E.
Or it's the poem if you know the reference.
Yeah. So. But, anyways, I think the last thing we should probably talk about, and I know we're already over an hour, is how deadly depression can be. And I know I touched on it before with talking about teens and the teens that I work with, and the statistic about suicidal thoughts. But it's a very, very, very real thing. It's something that Squeeps and I are both intimately acquainted with. And it's something that really, really, really needs to be acknowledged and not stigmatized and not brushed under the rug and not, I don't know how to say this, devalued. I feel like people are made to feel that if they are suicidal, or they say they're suicidal, or they cut, or they do anything like that, they're just looking for attention. Or it's a joke. And it's 100% not okay. That's why I tell people all the time when somebody says something like, I'll go kill myself. I'm like, nope, not an okay joke.
Yeah, it's not a funny joke.
I'm like, it's
think-
not an okay joke.
I think a lot of it is influence as well. Especially now, again, touching on social media and things, people will think because a certain group does something, they have to do it too to fit in. And that's not necessarily the truth. And it's sad to see. It's really sad to see. Whereas I agree, your feelings are 100% valid. At the same time, if you're only doing things like self-harm or, you know, dressing a certain way to fit in with people, you know, it's just going to cause your own self-harm until it does become a real thing. And, you know, it's just really painful to watch. I've seen people go down that road. Most people that have those suicidal tendencies and things like that, you're not going to tell they're that way on the outside. They're just gonna go home and do it. It's not like there's a reason when you see people cut, and it unfortunately becomes a trend, and I hate even calling it that.
Well,
Okay.
I shouldn't have mentioned cutting. Cutting, unfortunately, is a very complex topic. Um,
It is. There's not an easy way to go into it, but
because
That's-
it becomes addictive with the rush of adrenaline that comes with your body reacting to the pain response.
right.
So
And you can tell by the way somebody cut,
yeah,
what they were actually doing. I'm not going to get into specifics because the last thing I want to do is coach somebody on the right way to do it,
yeah, and
But you can absolutely tell the difference by looking.
no, I know, I understand. I just yeah. But my point was that we shouldn't be saying, like, my son at 5 years old is coming home and saying, this kid talks about he's going to kill himself. And I said, that's not something that is okay to joke about. And he says, well, he says it. I'm like, okay, well, tell him that that's not an okay thing to say. And I'm thinking, at 5 years old, who is this child hearing this from? Because that's not something a 5-year-old just says. And it's not something I want my son to start saying. Because
Right? Or the people that tell other people to go kill themselves, that's not okay either.
right, because you never know
It's
who
not.
you're talking to who actually is suicidal, who just needs
Absolutely.
that push over the ledge.
It's
And
not a funny joke, you're not trendy, you're not cool for it, you're not funny. You're a piece of shit for saying something like that. Because when something does happen, guess what? You're a piece of garbage. People will forgive you, people will forget, but you'll still know what happened. Like, it's just don't do it.
as a mother who has a child who deals with bullying because of his mental state, I'm going to go ahead and go out there and say bullying is just not okay.
No, bullying is never okay.
Cyberbullying, telling people to kill themselves, telling people they're useless, they're worthless, any of that stuff online, doing it in person, pranking people, humiliating them, any of that stuff, especially somebody who's already withdrawn, dealing with depression, maybe an outlier in the crowd, any of that kind of thing is 100% not okay. 100%. And I'm saying that as somebody who, while I wasn't one of those jock bullies who picked on everybody, I was not kind in school. And if I wanted to ruin somebody, I ruined them. But I can honestly say that if I defended somebody, I defended them. And I was expelled from the school for defending my little sister. That's beside the point. But picking on somebody, telling them to kill themselves, online or otherwise, you don't know what you're triggering in a person's life. And if you're on the other side of that coin and your brain is saying, I'm not worth anything, I should just go kill myself, I'm not worth the space I'm taking up, the world would be better without me, I don't
The second
want to be alive.
you have those thoughts, seek somebody immediately, like somebody to talk to.
Because
Sorry,
the
I
instant
didn't mean to
no,
cut you off,
you're
but-
100% right, because that's the thing. The instant that thought comes into your head, the world would be better without me, that is your red flag. That's your red flag.
Absolutely.
Because
Yes, seek some kind of help immediately, and I don't mean that in an insulting way. I mean, please, for your mental health, go find somebody to talk to about it, because it will only get worse from there if you don't.
because I can tell you with absolute certainty, when I was on a medication that was chemically not working with my bipolar, the instant that I felt my brain say, I need to get these things in order because I shouldn't be in this world, was when I called my psychiatrist and said, there's something wrong. That should always be your red flag. When your brain says something like that, I shouldn't be in this world, or things would be better without me, is when you should know this isn't normal. My brain and my body should have some semblance of self-preservation. Biologically, evolutionarily, my body should want to survive. And if your brain is going, no, it's time to not be here anymore, that's your red flag.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it comes down to you. Not what somebody's saying to you, but making sure you're taking care of number one. And number one should always be yourself and your health. As selfish as that sounds,
It's not.
it's not.
Because if you want to put other people as a priority in your life, you have to be there. You can't help anyone else if you're not there to help them. So even if you want to be the most selfless person on the planet, you can't do it if you're not there. So, there's a lot of other things that can go into it. There's a lot of stuff that can come with depression. There's a lot of things that depression can do to your brain, to your body, with the weight gain, which can play into the self-worth, that can play into your body image, to everything else. Like I said, it becomes a spiral. But the number one flag should always be, if my body and my brain has lost its sense of survival, if the sense of self-preservation is gone, there's something wrong. If you think about it like that, usually you can get through it. It's a really, really good way to work on it like that. Because you're not thinking about it emotionally. Technically, you're thinking about it from a biological standpoint or a scientific standpoint. You're separating yourself from the emotion, from the thoughts themselves.
And just one other thing about it that I'd really like to touch on. I just don't want to miss this before we end the podcast. You have a choice of who is around you. There is a difference between family and relatives.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Although people will argue that no. Family is who is there for you, who supports you, who will listen to you, who will guide you, who you can guide, who, no matter what, at the end of the day, you have them. Relatives are just the family you're born into because of blood. And blood means nothing. If you have toxic people in your life, whether you're related to them, whether they're friends, whether they're somebody you've met on the internet, or just people who bully you at school, they're toxic people. Get them out of your life. They do not have to be in your life.
Don't add them on Facebook, for the love of God.
But most importantly, it's your life. You pick your well, you don't really get to pick your family. Family just kind of happens one day.
It's true.
But relatives, you can absolutely cut them out of your life because, I'm not saying you have to cut your relatives out of your life. I'm saying if they're not good for you, you don't have to speak to them. They're like any other person on the planet.
It's true. I don't speak to most of mine.
Right, and I have very, very, very few people I even talk to in general.
That's also true of me. Which is ironic, because I'm an extrovert. But I'm an extrovert without people, so.
Yeah, it depends. for me. I'm an extroverted introvert.
I'm just an extrovert.
So, but yeah, it's super important. Just because you have the same blood as somebody does not mean you have to keep them in your life, which is super important to mental health. If you have somebody that, like the old saying, misery loves company. If you have these miserable people around you, guess what? They're gonna drag you right down to their level.
This is very true. And if you find yourself absolutely like terrified and paralyzed of removing people from your life, that is a whole different thing. A lot of times people who are in unhealthy relationships, toxic relationships, it's actually emotionally abusive, and you will find yourself paralyzed with the fear of disappointing that person, telling that person no in any way, and doing like moving sometimes. Like, it is absolutely paralyzing, and it takes time. But once you start finding your own ground, your own self, the first thing is understanding this is toxic, this is manipulative, this is abusive, and then you can start to see, okay, I need to remove myself from this person. It can be a friendship, it can be parents, it can be siblings, but the number one thing is to start seeing, why am I afraid to make my own decision? Because you should never be afraid to make a decision for yourself. You should never be afraid to be a person. You should always be allowed to feel like you're a human being. And no one should ever be able to take that from you. And if they have made you feel like you can't be a person, then they are being emotionally abusive. They are invalidating you, and that is wrong. And you need to see that so that you can start to remove yourself from that abusive situation. Because the odds of being able to get out of depression very much depend on getting out of the situation as well. That's an important one. That was a very hard one for me. I am from a very, very emotionally, psychologically, sometimes physically and sexually abusive situation. And getting away, even when I was physically away, breaking out of the mindset of I can't upset these people was the hardest part. 100% the hardest part. Even being an entire country away, moving thousands of miles away, it was hard for me to say no on an instant messenger. No lie.
Yeah, and then you got people like me who, just to make it as easy as possible, move 2,500 miles away from their nearest relatives. So.
I moved away. I just couldn't. The mental break was hard. Getting past the mental block was hard.
And I would like to add a disclaimer. I'm sure I'll just put it in text on the YouTube, but first of all, for anybody who's listening, although we both have professional training in mental health and therapies and, different forms of psychology, we are not professionals ourselves, and we'll always ask that you do seek a professional for more weighing questions.
100%.
Most important.
Yes, I may have been a mental health counselor and I may be certified, but I am not a licensed counselor. Please, if you need help, seek somebody who is licensed, seek a medical doctor, seek a psychiatrist or a therapist. We are always here to talk and to listen, but if you need medical help, if you feel that you are having thoughts of hurting yourself, please, please, please call your emergency line immediately. Or if that ever happens, the number one thing to do is call your emergency line. In America, it's 911. I don't know what it is anywhere else. But
You
that
can
is...
call 911. They have suicide hotlines, or
Well, no. If somebody is in immediate danger, they have to call 911.
all right.
But if you're ever just having thoughts, not planning to do it right away, there's suicide hotlines. Like I said, apps to chat with therapists. Pretty sure they're all free. And you can always join our Discord. Please join our Discord. We will talk with you. You can join
Yeah,
our Discord
honestly,
anyways and hang out with us.
Absolutely. And if you are having those kinds of thoughts, but you don't think it's, well, no, I'm not going to dismiss any part of it. If you just need somebody to talk to because you are having those thoughts, I do not care what time of the day it is. I will make time for you. Every single time.
I will respond eventually. I am so bad at responding on my phone. I cannot promise any better. I am sorry.
Yes, but as soon as I see it, I promise you I will make time for you and we will talk until you feel a little safer. I don't care if it takes all day. I don't care if it's at 2:30 in the morning and I have to be up at 6. Nothing is more important to me than somebody's life.
100%. 100%. And like I said, this is something that Squeeps and I are intimately acquainted with. We may not be professionals, but we definitely have a lot of experience with all of these things. And we are 100% here for anybody who wants us to listen. Absolutely here. And I think that's it. Do you have anything else to add, Squeeps?
Just that I think it's super fucking cool that the podcast is back.
Woo! Life Sucks Podcast. I don't know why I'm doing my finger guns because nobody can see us, but hey, podcast.
Oh my god.
Oh, shut up. Anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I know we went about 40 minutes over our hour, so I guess we're gonna go for 2-hour podcasts. That's exciting.
Hey, I think our podcast should go as long as we need it to.
That's fair. That's fair. Alright guys, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been your Life Sucks podcast with Mira and Squeeps. We will catch you guys next time.
Catch you next time, guys. We love you. We're here for you. And we'll be back with another podcast in less than a year, I promise.
Less than a year. Absolutely. Hopefully in like a couple weeks.
Maybe a week.
Maybe a week. At least a month. At least a month. We love you all. Bye.
Good night, guys.